Hello everyone. This is the 8th part of the story, Magical Journey in Harry Potter World. Chapter 29, Change in Events, and the New Quest. Quinn was peacefully eating his breakfast in the Great Hall when Eddie came barging in and sat beside Quinn. Hey, did you hear what happened last night? Quinn waited till there was no food in his mouth before asking, You are early today. Of course, I am early. You woke me up by kicking me off my bed. I was wide awake the second I felt the ground. Thanks for being gentle, grumbled Eddie as he piled food on his table. Quinn laughed, sorry about that. I misjudged my strength, and you were sleeping too close to the edge of the bed. Don't sweat the small stuff. So, what was the thing you were talking about? Quinn took a bite from his food. Oh, yeah, excitement clear in his voice. Yesterday, Harry Potter was caught roaming outside after curfew. Then he tried to blame Draco Malfoy for tricking him into breaking the curfew, something about a wizard's duel. I am not really sure. Oh, really? That is really interesting, said Quinn as he recalled the book's event of the Midnight Duel, where Draco tricked Harry and Ron into coming to the trophy room on the 3rd floor for a wizard's duel but didn't show up as part of Draco's plan, and tipped Filch so that Harry would get in trouble. In the canon, they didn't get caught, but this time they did. I wonder if they still found the Cerberus behind the locked door on the 3rd floor corridor, thought Quinn before asking, was he alone? Eddie shook his head, and with food still in his mouth, spoke, he had Weasley twins' younger brother, and a Gryffindor girl with them. Who caught them? They were caught by Filch just outside the Gryffindor common room. Apparently, they were returning from the so-called duel farce, revealed Eddie. I heard they got a stern scolding from Professor McGonagall and Professor Potter, and they say the girl was so scared that she cried, like really hard. Ouch, Quinn uttered with a smile on his face. Being scolded by a professor for breaking rules was probably the current Hermione's biggest fear. Professor McGonagall said if he did something like this once again, his Quidditch privileges would be taken away, and he won't be allowed to play this year. Here I was thinking McGonagall was becoming what Snape is to Slytherin, scoffed Eddie as he thought about the blatant favoritism given to the boy who lived. Yes, even in this timeline, Harry Potter had managed to get a spot on the Gryffindor Quidditch team. If he was good on a broom without ever holding it in 11 years of living in the non-magical community, then this time where he was raised in a magical household, he was just too good to ignore. Lily did try to forbid Harry from joining the Quidditch team in his first year, but McGonagall was able to convince her to let him join. Quinn wondered what McGonagall say to convince Lily. Quinn turned to look back towards the Gryffindor. He searched and found Harry Potter and Ron Weasley sitting together. Where is Hermione? Wondered Quinn as he searched for her, and to his surprise, Quinn found her sitting with Ivy Potter far away from Harry and Ron. This is new. From what he knew, the Potter twins weren't like the Weasley twins and didn't hang out together all the time. The Potter twins were more like Pottle twins, where they talked to each other when they got time but mostly did their own thing and sat in different circles. Quinn watched as both girls talked to each other in hushed tones. From where Quinn could see it, Ivy was consoling a clearly upset Hermione. I wonder how would the future pan out for the Golden Trio. Quinn looked at Ivy and Hermione and thought, I wonder if there will even be a trio this time? Scene break. On a Thursday, 1 hour after the curfew, Quinn was on the tallest tower of Hogwarts, the Astronomy Tower. The highest height one could be in Hogwarts. He was here with his telescope, mapping the star and planet's position for a potion brew that required a specific celestial positioning in one of its steps within the recipe. He had been coming to the Astronomy Tower for a week to note the position to get some observations required while brewing. Quinn had his eye looking into the eyepiece of the telescope when he heard a voice that startled him. Child, you do know that it is after hours, right? A startled Quinn almost knocked down his telescope when he turned to see how it was. It slightly relieved Quinn when he saw the Hufflepuff ghost, Fat Friar, floating behind him. Friar, you almost scared me to death. What are you doing here? Asked Quinn as he patted his chest to calm down his beating heart. I should be the one asking that question, little raven. It is after curfew, you should be in your common room and not outside, said Friar as he watched Quinn. I was just doing some work with my telescope, said Quinn, not wanting to give out much information. Friar stared at Quinn before smiling. You know, we wondered if you had stopped roaming Hogwarts after curfew, but seeing you here shows that you still have that exploring spirit in you. What do you mean?" asked Quinn in confusion. "What does Fat Friar mean by that?" he thought. "Oh, you know, last year, you spent every night outside your common room walking around the castle. We ghosts saw you plenty of times," laughed Friar. "We even saw you earlier this year, but then a few months ago, you stopped appearing, so we wondered where were you." Quinn realized what Friar was talking about. After creating Reckon, Quinn made sure that no portrait, ghost, house elf would ever see him in the castle, but before Reckon, he didn't have the best tool, sneaking tool, so it wasn't a surprise that some ghosts saw him roaming the halls of the castle. Quinn sat down on the floor of the tower's roof and spoke. "No, I still come out every day, but I have gotten better at not being seen, haven't I?" Friar sat down beside Quinn and answered, "Yes, you have." "Tell me, why do you hold such interest in the castle?" "I traveled many places throughout the world, saw many intriguing and magical sights in those places, but I never stayed more than a few days. Hogwarts is a wondrous place, and in my mind, it would be an utter waste not to know more about it. I have time, so why not explore it?" Quinn looked at Friar and said, "You studied here when the founders were alive. Has it changed since then?" Friar hummed in thought before saying, "Oh yes, it has changed. The castle wasn't as great during the founders' time. The castle has aged well with time, as wine does. I have been here for so long and have seen the change. It has gone from being a building built by the founders and the architect to become a magnificent and magical place. Full of life and joy. Magic is a great thing, and it breathed life into the castle." Quinn stared at the stars in thought. "It is indeed a mysterious place. I have learned a lot from it. Full of knowledge and wisdom. There has been chatter among the ghosts that you have been helping students. That room of yours on the 5th floor. You have been doing a lot of good," said Friar. Quinn chuckled at Friar's words. "Now I know I have made it big if even the dead are talking about me." Quinn's consultation service business has been coming along quite nicely. Even though the requests he was getting were minor repairs, help with homework, and other menial tasks, his customer base was still growing steadily. But these minor tasks were enough for Friar, as it was his nature to look at people's good qualities and ignore their faults. "I think that you have been doing an excellent job, and I appreciate your services to your fellow students, so I will give you a gift that you will like," Friar said in a joyous tone. Quinn was skeptical about the so-called gift, but he still listened. After all, Helen Ravenclaw led Voldemort to her mother's diadem. "As you love exploring the castle so much, I will start you on an adventure, little Raven. In Hogwarts, there are these cursed vaults, legendary rooms hidden around the castle. They are hiding secrets, not known to anyone but the creators." Friar stared into Quinn's eyes as he revealed, "Each room is guarded by curses and wards that stop the seekers from entering them, keeping the secrets inside safe. Not even us house ghosts know who built them or when they were built. The origin of the vaults has been forgotten by everyone. Among the many theories circulating, some say that the founders created them, or that a headmaster who suffered from paranoia created them to hide his treasure, or that the architect who helped the founders build Hogwarts built these vaults to hide something of great importance." Friar's words fully captured Quinn's attention, a part of Hogwarts that he didn't know or mentioned in the books. He wanted to learn more about these vaults. "If you asked my friend, Nicholas, he would say that the vaults hold back dangerous things from being unleashed into the world, or house dangerous secrets that would bring doom if fallen into the wrong hands, but he is always overthinking stuff. Other ghosts allege that these vaults house priceless treasures such as gold, prophecies, and other powerful magical artifacts dating back to before the school was founded, while others believe they contain dark magic. But, ultimately, no one knows what is inside," said Friar. "Noting your interest in exploration and learning, I will give you some hints for location of the vaults, and it is up to you if you can find the vaults and enter them to find what is inside. Do note that the vaults might be dangerous and might cause you harm, so I will advise that you proceed cautiously." Friar floated up and asked seriously, "So, I ask you, little Raven, do you want to embark on this adventure, knowing well that it might not end well? Do you want to uncover the secrets of Hogwarts, not knowing what you will see inside? Say the word, and you shall receive my answer. Refuse and we will part ways." Quinn stood up and faced Friar. He had immediately made his decision. In front of him was an opportunity that not many received, a chance to explore an unknown part of Hogwarts. Friar, I will take on this adventure from you. I will see what Hogwarts hides, what it offers, knowing that it might not end well, knowing that I might not get anything from these vaults. Despite all of this, I want to know the hint to the vaults. Friar nodded and sang. Beyond sight exist 5 vaults, not known to many. Their source unknown, lost in time. Bearing the knowledge that death might come. I give you the hint of the first one. A vault so cold that even death might die. You will find it on the level 5 stories high. Quinn nodded and immediately memorized the hint, and just to be safe, he noted the words on a sheet of paper. I have given this riddle to many students and even some teachers throughout the years, but only a handful of them were able to find the first vault. And none of those were ever able to enter the first vault and were stopped at the vault entrance, said Friar as he gazed down on Quinn. Quinn read the riddle over and over again before looking up at the floating Friar and grinned. Then get ready. I will be the first one to enter the vault and move on to the second one and the next. Someday, I will enter all 5. Friar gently smiled and floated away without saying a word while Quinn stared at the clue and then at the stars, wondering about this new adventure that had fallen into his lap. Scene break. Time slowly passed, and Halloween rolled around. When Quinn exited the common room for his morning run, the smell of baking pumpkin greeted him, wafting through the corridors. The elves are hard at work, as always, Quinn spoke to himself as he jogged down the corridors to the grounds for his run. Quinn was in a good mood, as today he would get to meet a troll. He was not going to miss this opportunity. "Oh Troll Tilda, I am coming for you. Going to do some ass-kicking, and no one is going to know, nobody. Dancing with the trolls, Halloween has come." "Oh, magic, you are amazing," sang Quinn as he ran his usual route. Quinn was excited that he colored the grass on his entire route orange and purple in the spirit of Halloween. When Quinn dressed up for the day, he put on his wizard's hat that no one wore for the day and pinned a conjured small lapel pin in the shape of a carved pumpkin to his robes for fun. When he got down to the Great Hall for breakfast, his eyes caught Flitwick reading the Daily Prophet, so he decided to wish him a happy Halloween, but in a special way. Quinn stood just beside the entrance of the Great Hall and took out his fake wand for show. He then used the same magic Flitwick had used to call him to give his keys on the first day of school. "Professor Flitwick, good morning, and I wish you a spooky Halloween." Quinn's words went straight to Flitwick without leaking midway. Flitwick smiled and raised his head from the table to greet the student who spoke and found no one in front of his spot on the high table. "Huh, who was that?" Flitwick looked around the confusion. "Over here, Professor," spoke Quinn while still standing near the Great Hall entrance. Flitwick frantically stood on his chair and looked around to see who was calling for him but still couldn't find anyone. Quinn smiled and decided to end this and said, "Near the entrance, Professor," and raised his hand to wave so that Flitwick could see him. Flitwick, from his table, looked towards the entrance and saw Quinn waving his hand with his wand tip on his throat. "This is how you did it, Professor." "I must say it is a fun piece of magic," said Quinn. A wide smile bloomed on Flitwick's face as he jumped on his chair while clapping. He also took out his wand and placed it on his throat, and spoke, "Excellent execution, Mr. West. 5 points for an impressive showcase and 5 more because it is Halloween." His words charmed to reach Quinn's ears only. "Thank you, Professor," Quinn replied and then skipped to the Ravenclaw table for a hearty breakfast. When Quinn was eating, he felt a pat on his shoulder. He looked back to see Tracy Davis and Daphne Greengrass. "Happy Halloween, Quinn," Tracy spoke, being her usual bubbly self. Quinn smiled wide and said, "Ah, my favorite Slytherin." He turned to Daphne and spoke to her, "Just to be clear, I am talking about Davis and not you, Greengrass." Quinn had promoted Tracy and Daphne from Ms. Davis and Ms. Greengrass to just their surname. Daphne narrowed her eyes but didn't say anything, while Tracy giggled in response. "Davis, if more Slytherin were like you, the world would be a better place," Quinn spoke to Tracy but looked at Daphne with a smile. Tracy laughed again while Daphne continued to ignore him. "So, what is happening with you guys? Anything new with you?" asked Quinn. Tracy's eyes sparkled as she talked. "We finally learned how to make things fly. The first-year students were finally learning the levitation charm." Quinn clapped once before picking 2 apples from a platter and placing them on the table. He gestured to the 2 girls and said, "Do try." Tracy looked at Daphne and telling her to take her wand and cast some magic. Daphne sighed and took out her wand, knowing that her best friend won't stop if she refused. Tracy grinned and took out her wand as well. Wingardium Leviosa, chanted both the Slytherin girls. The 2 apples rose from the table, albeit a little slowly. Quinn smiled as he looked from the apples to the girls with a smile and spoke, "Good work, a little slow, but a good start. Remember, practice makes perfect." Both of them stopped casting at the same time, and the apples stopped floating. Luckily Quinn was ready, he immediately caught them and placed them back on the table. Daphne pocketed her wand and humphed, "Why don't you show if you are so good?" The smile on Quinn's face turned into one of amusement, and he said, "All right." He turned back to the Ravenclaw and called out, "Hilliard, a scouring charm on my hands, please." Hilliards, a 5th-year prefect, looked up from his book and took out his wand with a sigh before casting a scouring charm, Scrougefy, charm on Quinn's hand, cleaning them instantly. "Thanks," said Quinn before turning to Tracy and Daphne. "Had to get my hands clean. Now, where were we?" "Ah, yes, the levitation charm." Quinn took out his fake wand and performed the wand movement just for show and whispered the incantation, Wingardium Leviosa. The apples that Quinn had set on the table began floating and started rapidly moving. Levitating multiple objects, neat, right? With some practice, you could do it too. Remember, the wand movement and incantation are not the main part of a spell. You have to understand the underlying concept behind the spell. Understand that, and you will master spells at a quick pace. Quinn pointed at the high table and continued, "Not my words. This piece of wisdom comes directly from Professor Flitwick." Quinn waved his fake wand straight down, and the apples set themselves down gently on the table. "As I said, practice makes perfect." Quinn pocketed his fake wand and folded his hands in his lap. Daphne looked at the 2 apples and then at Quinn before seriously nodding. Quinn smiled. From his interaction with Daphne, he had come to understand her personality. She didn't trust people quickly and preferred a few close and genuine friends rather than many friendly acquaintances. She was a private person. Plus, she had seen the difference between how Quinn interacted with Tracy and other students. Quinn was much friendlier to Tracy than others, so she had doubts about him. Quinn waved the Slytherin girls goodbye and proceeded on with his day, waiting for the evening to arrive. Chapter 30, Troll Hunting and Reading Memories. The time was 10 minutes before the Halloween feast, and Quinn was on the first floor hiding in the History of Magic classroom, waiting for the feast to start, and in turn, the beginning of the first of many Halloween mishaps in the life of Harry Potter. Reckon, the tracking map, laid on the table in front of him. He was looking at the map and tracking people of interest on Reckon. He saw Hermione Granger in the first floor's girls' lavatory. Probably crying in there because of Ron Weasley, thought Quinn as he absent-mindedly tapped on the map. There was still no sign of trolls, and Quirrell wasn't in Hogwarts as when Quinn spoke his name, the map didn't react. Just a minute before the feast, the map reacted when Quinn searched for Quirrell, and the map switched to show the first floor, near Gregory the Smarmist statue, a deep violet spot showing Quirrell and a red spot with troll written on it. "He is here." Quinn stood up from his chair and looked at the map. Gregory the Smarmist statue, that is a secret passage, isn't it? Was he hiding a troll in that passage? Is this why the troll didn't show up on the map? The secret passage entrances and the part of passages within Hogwarts premises were visible on the map, but the outer part of the secret passages wasn't part of Hogwarts, so they didn't show up on the map. Quinn watched the map as the troll and Quirrell parted ways as the troll slowly wandered around the first floor, and Quirrell headed towards the staircase. But what happened next betrayed Quinn's expectation as Quirrell didn't climb down the stairs but climbed up to the second floor. Quinn frowned as the map switched to the staircase and then the second floor. Where is he going? Quinn began tapping his feet as he felt the events change from his canon knowledge. No, don't rush. Quirrell might have something to do and might get back to the feast after this. The books didn't specify when Quirrell entered the Great Hall to reveal the troll. Quinn's hunch turned out to be correct as Quirrell stopped next to the stairs to the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor's office. He disappeared into the secret passage there, and a minute later, Quirrell emerged with another troll. Another troll? What is happening? Quinn pounded his fist on the table as he decided to look at the first troll, and got another shock when he found Ivy Potter in the girl lavatory with Hermione Granger. What is she doing there? Come on, people, why are you doing this to me? Quinn whined as he didn't know what to do. Which troll should I go to? Quinn needed to decide quickly, and after thinking about it, he decided to go to the new troll on the second floor. The second troll was hanging out near the staircase, and if it made its way to the stairs, the troll might meet the Gryffindor and Ravenclaw students when they are going to their common room. He decided to leave Hermione and Ivy in the hands of fate. He convinced himself that they won't be harmed and would come out of this unharmed. Fate's a bitch, but she has her moments. Let's hope she doesn't screw this up, Quinn thought as he levitated Reckon beside him, and the second Quirrell was on the ground floor. He ran up the stairs to the second floor. Let's take down a troll, shall we? Quinn looked at Reckon, and before proceeding forward, turned himself invisible. He didn't want any ghosts, house elves, or portraits seeing him fight a troll. He smirked and quoted a line from the books, "I don't need a cloak to become invisible." Quinn followed the path to the troll by observing Reckon and stopped just a turn away from the troll. He deactivated Reckon and stored it in his clothes. He walked ahead, and after turning right on a corner, saw Quirrell's second troll. The troll was 12 feet tall, its skin was a dull, granite gray, its great lumpy body like a boulder with its small bald head perched on top like a coconut. It had short legs thick as tree trunks with flat, horny feet. The smell coming from it was incredible. It held a massive wooden club, which dragged along the floor because its arms were so long. A terrible sight right out of a horror movie, but Quinn had been in the magical world long enough to have seen a lot of magical beasts, and the sight of troll didn't disturb him, but the smell sure did. It was so bad that Quinn wanted to leave right away, but he had work to do. Let's get this over with, you smelly bastard. Quinn primed his magic for battle, and for his first course of action, immediately sent a highly charged Dark Art's version of Explosion Charm toward the troll's groin, aiming for the delicate part of a male's body. The result was as Quinn expected as the troll moved his hands towards the region of the explosion while roaring in pain and shook. During his studies, Quinn had found some interesting facts about some non-dark that could be used to cause damage to a person. It turned out that spells like Explosion Charm that exploded objects, Severing Charm that could be used to cut objects, Reductor Charm that turned objects to dust were inherently created for non-living targets. They could be used on humans and could definitely cause bodily harm but weren't efficient magic-wise. The amount of magic used to cause substantial damage to the human body didn't sit well with Quinn, and the creators did not design the formation of these spells for living beings, so he leaned into Dark Art's spells for bodily harm. Dark art spells were specially crafted for causing harm to the living and caused much greater damage with less magic and more efficiency. "Ah!" roared the troll in pain. Quinn might have overdone it with the Dark Explosion Charm's strength. Ouchie! Well, at least I know the troll is a male, thought Quinn, but didn't stop. He had to continue as trolls were dangerous beings. I have to get rid of that club in his hand, planned Quinn, and to accomplish disarming the troll of his huge club, immediately shot a Dark Reductor curse on the troll's club-bearing hand, causing the troll to drop the club. Quinn noticed why the trolls were classified as highly dangerous magical beings. The heavily charged Dark Reductor curse Quinn just shot right now would have turned a person's hand to a bloody pulp, but all it did to the troll was causing a flesh wound. Need to practice the dark spells to increase my mastery, analyzed Quinn, not considering that he was basing his standards on a tough-skinned troll. Quinn's eyes flashed as he sent a banishing spell towards the fallen club to distance it from the troll. The club went flying away from the troll, and with the club away from the troll, Quinn raised his hand and aimed towards the troll. Taking a deep breath, Quinn started a continuous spell chain of Dark Explosion Charm and Dark Reductor Curse on the troll's body. Arg! Oh! Rare! The troll's scream echoed in the corridor as the spell did damage to the troll. In the empty corridor with fire torches as the only source of light, every other second, a dark spell would be shot from Quinn, illuminating the surroundings and zapped towards the troll, aiming for weak spots like the face, neck, kneecaps, and not the least the groin. Quinn, without mercy, ripped the troll's body bloody, not stopping until the troll fell down to the ground with a heavy thump, causing slight tremors to pass through the floor. From the groans and grunts of agony coming from the troll, Quinn could hear that the troll was alive, but having been the one to do damage, Quinn was sure that it won't be standing up anytime soon. And Ron Weasley knocked the troll down with a blunt blow to the head, speculated Quinn as he compared his method of dismantling the troll to the cannon's troll fight. Taking out his pocket watch, Quinn looked at the time. He had spent a considerable amount of time here. He needed to join the other students to avoid suspicion. Quinn turned away from the troll and ran away. As he ran, Quinn activated Reckon and looked for the Ravenclaw students. He found them moving up the staircase and decided to blend in with the crowd at the stairs. Quinn waited until they were a little ahead of him and then lifted his invisibility. Making sure that he wasn't seen, he entered the crowd and pushed his way into the horde of students to reach Eddie and Marcus. "Hey, mates," casually greeting his roommates as nothing had happened, and Quinn hadn't just returned from a fight with a troll. Eddie grabbed Quinn by the robes and harshly whispered, "Where in the world were you? Do you know what is happening out there? I was worried about you, man." If they weren't on the stairs, Eddie would have pulled Quinn into a hug. Quinn put on a nervous expression and spun a story. "Well, I was in the library and was running a little late. I was walking to the Great Hall, but then nature called, and I had to visit the loo. When I was done and was finally on my way to the Great Hall for the feast, one portrait warned me that there was a troll loose in the castle and told me that the students were returning to their common rooms, and then I found you guys here." Eddie and Marcus breathed a sigh of relief that Quinn didn't meet or saw the troll. But Quinn was a little occupied as with other thoughts. To make sure that professors did not suspect him when they found the second troll, he had rushed to join the students, so he hadn't the time to check what happened with the first troll. He wasn't sure if Ivy and Hermione had escaped unharmed. Currently, he wanted to get to the common room and check Reckon for their status. After a long and thorough roll call in the common room, Quinn hurriedly climbed up the stairs to the boys' dorm, went to his bed, and drew the curtain for the excuse of privacy for changing clothes. He took out Reckon and sharply whispered, "Hermione Granger." The layout of Reckon switched to a corridor near the Gryffindor Tower. Quinn saw Hermione, Ivy, Harry, Ron, and Lily Potter walking towards the Gryffindor common room. "They are safe," sighed Quinn as he leaned on the backboard of his bed. Quinn continued to watch as the group reached the common room entrance, and it made Quinn smile as Reckon showed the Gryffindor common room password, "Pig Snout." He turned Reckon off. Quinn was hungry, and the food was ready in the common room. If he had stayed and checked on the trolls, he would have found the professors moving towards the troll he took down. Scene break. All the professors, excluding Dumbledore, Snape, and Binns, walked on the second floor. A ghost had told them about a second troll on the second floor. The ghost seemed troubled by something. What was wrong with that ghost? Pomona Sprout asked her colleagues as she recalled how the ghost had run away just after telling them about the second troll. Flitwick looked at the herbology master and shrugged, "I don't know, but the ghost did seem awfully frantic." When they reached a corner, all the professors smelled a rancid and offending stench. McGonagall stopped and warned, "Wands out, the troll is just around the corner." The professors didn't need a second warning as everybody drew their wands. Though they did hear Quirrell make a sound, "eep," as the Defense Against Dark Arts professor fumbled to take out his wand. "Don't lose focus," warned McGonagall as all of them turned the corridor to see a shocking sight. They saw a troll, but not in the condition they were expecting. "Why is it laying D down?" stuttered Quirrell as he looked at the second troll that he had released in Hogwarts. Today wasn't panning out as Quirrell and Voldemort had planned. The first troll was taken down the damned Potters, and now this second troll was laying down in the middle of a corridor. Is it sleeping? Aurora Sinistra, the astronomy professor, took a guess. Sylvanus Kettleburn, the professor of care of magical creatures, grunted in response, "No, you stupid girl, look closely, the troll is bleeding." With his prosthetic legs, he moved towards the troll. "Kettleburn!" McGonagall tried to stop Sylvanus, but the old professor kept walking towards the troll. "Oh, Morgana," they heard Sylvanus gasp. "Come here, right now." Sylvanus called out to them. When they reached the troll's body, they saw the gruesome sight that made all of them gasp. "Merlin! What is this? Who dash? How horrific!" They saw the terrible injuries and trauma on the troll's body. Horrifying wounds that were bleeding profusely, leaking blood everywhere. "These wounds," muttered Lily as she took in the horrendous sight in front of her. Sylvanus looked at Flitwick and grunted, "Flitwick, check them." The half-goblin immediately understood the meaning behind Sylvanus' words and casted some spell all over the troll's body, and the spell light all turned grey the second they hit the troll. "Dark spells," announced Flitwick as he looked at Sylvanus. What? McGonagall was shocked to hear that. She casted her own spells on the troll, and they too turned grey on contact. Who could do this? Septima Vector, the arithmancy professor, wondered aloud. All the professors were wondering the same. Someone had fought a troll in Hogwarts with dark spells, and no one knew who it was. Some of them even noticed how the damage was isolated to the jaw, neck, kneecaps, and groin. Plus, they also saw the club far away from where the troll had collapsed. The person who fought the troll knew what they were doing. How did someone even know that there was a second troll? Asked Lily. She then turned to Quirrell and asked, Professor Quirrell, is this the troll from the 3rd floor? Quirrell shook his head while fidgeting and stuttered, no, the clothes are different. This one is a different one. McGonagall looked at all her colleagues and said, let's get the troll out of here. This place needs to be cleaned before a student sees it, and I need to take to Albus about this. Scene break. The next day, Quinn had his ears up to listen if there was any news about the trolls, but there was no news. No one was talking about there being a second troll on the loose. The staff suppressed the news among themselves, speculated Quinn. He also noticed that even though people talked about the first troll, no one chatted about the Potters, which meant that no one knew what happened yesterday. Unfortunately, that also meant Quinn didn't have a clue of what took place yesterday. But he had a way of knowing about it, and he was currently on his way to find out. It was lunchtime, and Quinn was using Reckon to tracking the position of Ron Weasley. He was waiting for Ron to be alone, so he could get some information from the redhead, and the chance came when Ron separated from his friends and headed to the lavatory. Quinn deactivated Reckon and followed Ron to the lavatory. Just before he entered the lavatory, Quinn put on gloves and made himself invisible. Quinn entered the lavatory and waited for Ron to finish business, and when Ron was washing his hand, Quinn stepped behind him and took out a small vial of potion. The potion in the vial was a sedative agent that would make the consumer calm and put them in a hazy state susceptible to suggestions. Quinn was going to use legilimency on Ron, but his level of legilimency wasn't at the level where he could find the memories quickly. If Quinn wanted to target specific memories, it would take him time to find and reach said memories, and in this case, he didn't have the time. So, Quinn was planning to use this potion to render Ron into a semi-conscious state and work with that. He opened the vial and used the magic to manipulate the liquid to turn into mist, then he directed the mist to enter Ron through his nose, and the effect was almost immediate. Ron felt the potion's effects and felt the world turn cloudy, and an unnatural sense of emptiness and haziness fell on him. What is happening? Ron's words slurred, and the next second he felt his eyes get covered. Quinn, who was behind Ron, gently used his hand to make Ron close his eyes. He raised his other hand and put his index finger on Ron's temple, and spoke, "How are you feeling, Ron?" There was a pause before Ron slurred, "Weird." "It's okay, mate, everything is going to be fine. Follow my lead, and you feel normal." "Do you want to feel normal?" Quinn guided Ron and made him feel comfortable. "Yes." "Good, now all you have to do is think about yesterday when you met the troll. Can you do that for me, mate?" Quinn couldn't search through someone's memories quickly, but if someone was thinking about them, then it would become mighty easy as the memory would be on the surface of the person's psyche. Quinn was using his words and the potion to bring yesterday's memories to the surface. Troll, as Ron said that Quinn used legilimency and dived into Ron's mind, and as he expected, found the memory. In the memory, Harry noticed his sister Ivy wasn't in the Great Hall. Then Ron and Harry recalled Parvati Patil telling them about Hermione crying in the lavatory, and how Ivy had torn into them just after the charms class when Ron had said rude things to Hermione. In the memory, Harry spoke, "I am sure that Ivy went to see Hermione, they might not know about the troll. We have to find them." Ron replied, "Oh, all right," he snapped. "But Percy better not see us." On their way, they saw Snape, but Harry was too worried about Ivy to care about Snape, so he pulled Ron with him, and when they reached the lavatory, they saw the troll. The troll had his club raised, but it was tilting sideways. In the memory, Quinn noticed that the troll was trying to hit Ivy and Hermione with its club, but the girls had their wands out, pointed towards the troll's club. A flash of realization struck Quinn, they are using the levitation charm to keep the troll's club away from them. The troll, being the epitome of stupidity, wasn't letting the club go and held onto it. It was trying to use its club to hit the girls. Ivy looked at Harry and yelled, "Use the levitation charm on the club. The troll is too strong, we can't get it out its hand." Harry was confused, but followed nevertheless. He took out his wand, and Ron followed. Harry succeeded in using the spell with moderate success, but Ron was having trouble using the spell. The memory switched to Hermione trying to teach Ron how to use the levitation charm. The memory shifted back to the lavatory, and Ron properly yelled, "Wingardium Leviosa." The club that was now subjected to 4 levitation charm pulled itself free out of the troll's hands as the troll tried to reach out for it, and then just like the cannon, fell onto the troll's head accompanied by a loud, sickening crack. The troll swayed on the spot and then fell flat on its face, with a thud that made the entire room tremble. Quinn had seen enough, so he stopped and brought himself out of the memory. "Good job, mate. You have done well. Now, everything will be all right, and when everything returns to normal, we will talk about Quidditch," calmly said Quinn. "Quidditch," slurred an excited Ron. Quinn removed his index finger from Ron's temple and took out another vial from his pockets, and vaporized the contents for Ron to inhale. It was the counteragent for the earlier potion. The second Quinn was done, he removed his hand from Ron's eyes and walked away without looking away. It took a few seconds for Ron to regain his mental facilities, and when he was back to normal, he had a pleasant urge to talk about Quidditch. Chapter 31, Working on the Riddle and the Stone's Chamber. Quinn sat in his workshop with a sheet of paper sitting on the table in front of Quinn. The sheet of paper contained the riddle given to him by Friar that held the clue to the first unknown vault. Beyond sight exist 5 vaults, not known to many. Their source unknown, lost in time. Bearing the knowledge that death might come. I give you the hint of the first one. A vault so cold that even death might die. You will find it on the level 5 stories high. Quinn tapped his finger on the table as he read the riddle, and it was fairly easy to understand. There are 5 cursed vaults in Hogwarts, and as Friar said, not many people know about the vaults. No one knows how they were created or who created them. And because they have never been opened, no one knows about the contents. Quinn deciphered the meaning of the first paragraph of the riddle. Now, the second paragraph contained some information that Friar hadn't given him. Now, how does Friar know that there is danger in the vaults? He has never been in there, which could mean that the entrance of the first vault holds some sort of danger, and people have died attempting to enter the vault. This part of the riddle did worry him a tiny bit. Quinn wasn't a fearless person, he worried about his health and safety and wanted to be perfectly safe before proceeding forward. But, in this situation, he didn't know how to ensure his safety. There were no precedents for Quinn to reference, he was going in blind this time. Until now, Quinn had been preoccupied with preparing for the troll incident, but he had tried to collect some information about these vaults from any source he could, but he wasn't able to find anything. The Room of Requirement didn't have anything on the vaults, neither did the library. The ghosts couldn't tell him anything regarding the vault. He even went to the kitchen to talk to the elves, but they too had nothing to inform him. "This will be a new challenge for me," muttered Quinn as he exhaled a sigh. The last paragraph of the riddle was the real clue. The lines represented information about the first vault. "A vault so cold that even death might die," recited Quinn as he tried to understand the meaning behind the sentence. "A vault so cold," murmured Quinn as he tapped his finger on the table. "What can that mean? Is the room freezing? Is it a room with an alternate environment, a tundra, or a permafrost-type environment?" Quinn had read about artificially cultivated environments with enclosed spaces. The best example he could give was Newt Scamander's trunk. It had various habitats for different magical beasts. The second part of the sentence was also intriguing, that even death might die. Quinn wrinkled his nose before clinking his tongue. "I hate metaphors. Death might die, what does that mean?" From the top of his head, Quinn could only think that the room was North Pole cold. Maybe whatever is in the room is encased by an ice cap. Is that it? Quinn scribbled some notes before moving to the final line. "You will find it on the level 5 stories high." Quinn smiled when he read this line. Now this is much better. On the level 5 stories high means the 5th floor, but if we count the basement, then it might be the 4th floor. 2 whole floors worth of search area. Reckon didn't show any sign of vaults, just like it didn't show the Room of Requirements. Well, Quinn had tried to enchant the position of the Room of Requirements in the map, but didn't achieve any success as any person inside the room was invisible. When Quinn opened the map inside the room of requirements, he didn't show up on Recon. The vaults were unplottable. Or, at least Quinn couldn't plot them with his current capabilities. I have been on the 4th floor and 5th floor a lot, but I haven't felt any unnatural cold on any of the floors, pondered Quinn. Quinn had mapped out Hogwarts' entirety for Recon, and he had memorized every inch of the castle for his Mindscape transition. Quinn had given himself 2 years for replicating a working model of Hogwarts in his mind, and his current progress covered floors ground till 6th. Only the dungeons and 7th floor were remaining in Quinn's mind replica. But despite this, Quinn had no clue about there being a vault on the 4th or 5th floor. This demands another round of late night, after curfew exploration. Quinn opened a new project in his workshop and named it Project Vaults. Under the project Vaults he opened a chapter. Chapter, Vault 1, Temp. From that day onwards, Quinn combed through the 2 floors at night, after the curfew. Scene break. At night, Quinn searched for Vault number 1. But, during the day, he was still a student of Hogwarts, attending class, learning magic, practicing magic in Room of Requirements, working at the A.I.D office, and monitoring what was happening around Hogwarts. As the year entered November, the weather turned frigid. The mountains around the school became icy grey and the lake like chilled steel. Every morning the ground was covered in frost, and students had to walk carefully to not risk slipping. Quinn created an exercise out of the frosted surface. In the morning, during his run, Quinn would turn all the ice he encountered into ice objects like flowers, ravens, snakes, lions, badgers, and anything that came into his mind. An exercise designed to exercise his focus and control over his magic. But, enough about that, and back to the next key event of this year, Harry Potter's first Quidditch event. In the canon, Quirrell and Snape were locked in a battle of cursing and counter-cursing Harry's broom, and Hermione had unknowingly knocked Quirrell while trying to get to Snape. Speaking of Harry and Hermione, the Golden Trio didn't form in this world. Quinn had observed them and found that Hermione and Ivy had gotten really close, whereas Harry and Ron were already friends from before. Harry Potter in this world was confident and outgoing. He was also involved in pranks, so he was always butting heads with rule-loving Hermione, so their relationship was quite rocky in this world. But after the troll incident, they had mellowed towards each other and were much more willing to tolerate each other. Ron had also toned down his insults towards Hermione and only provoked her if she berated Ron's intelligence and manners. Instead of Harry and Ron becoming best friends with Hermione, Ivy had become best friends with Hermione. The 2 girls did everything together, and it reminded Quinn of Tracy Davis and Daphne Greengrass. Still, Quinn was relieved by this outcome. At least with this, Hermione would still be in the loop regarding things around Harry, as the boy who lived was close to his twin sister, and Hermione was close to Ivy Potter. Quinn was sure that the challenges they had ahead of them would help these 4 build a bond similar to that of the Golden Trio of the canon. Coming to the present time, Quinn was standing near the restricted part of the 3rd floor corridor, the part that held the entrance to the Philosopher's Stone chamber, guarded by the creations of the Hogwarts professors. He was going to enter the special chamber and try to look at the Philosopher's Stone. It was broad daylight and not the usual hour of operation for Quinn, who liked to pretend as a normal student during the day and do his extracurricular work after school during the evening and night. But the opportunity was perfect, as today was the first match of the Quidditch season, and the boy who lived, the youngest seeker in Hogwarts history, was playing. A great majority of the school population was at the stadium to see the game. This game was also the one where Quirrell tried to curse Harry's broom so that he could injure Harry, and Snape fought against Quirrell by counter-cursing to save Harry. In the canon, Hermione thought Snape was trying to harm Harry and took action to stop him, but unknowingly knocked into Quirrell, who was the real preparator. Quinn didn't care for this event and was going to leave Harry's protection to Snape. He will work harder. I am sure he doesn't want his love of life to see her child get gravely injured in front of her, thought Quinn as he prepared for infiltration. Quinn was going to use the game and infiltrate the defenses guarding the stone. Quinn really wanted to observe the stone for educational curiosity. With the whole school there, Quinn had plenty of time to go in and out. Quinn stood in front of the door, and before opening it, he checked it out for wards. He shot out detection spells all around the locked door but didn't find a single ward on the door. This is reckless carelessness. Did Dumbledore really not put a single ward on the door? What was he thinking? Or, maybe there are wards, and I just can't detect them, wondered Quinn. He hesitated about there being high-level wards he couldn't detect, but decided to risk it. Whatever, let's enter this thing. Quinn silently casted an unlocking charm, Alahomra, and with a click, the door opened. Before entering the room, Quinn made himself invisible and took a deep breath before entered the room. He was greeted by low, rumbling growls. Quinn saw the first Challenger defense, set up by Rubeus Hagrid. The obstacle was to get past Fluffy was a gigantic, monstrous male three-headed dog, a magical beast species known as Cerberus who was once cared for by Rubeus Hagrid. Fluffy was raised by Hagrid and loaned to Albus Dumbledore to aid in guarding the Philosopher's Stone. Fluffy's greatest weakness was the inability to resist falling asleep to the sound of music. Quinn saw the Cerberus get up and sniffed around to the person who it couldn't see. Quinn stood perfectly still before slowly conjuring a violin. It was an exact replica of Quinn's violin. Quinn didn't want to bring his beloved violin in fear that it would get damaged. Quinn scowled at the conjured violin. It felt different in Quinn's hand, it felt like an inferior product. Quinn sighed before starting playing a tune on the violin. Vaughan Williams' The Lark Ascending began flowing through the room as the Cerberus stopped looking around, and looked towards the floating violin with all its 3 heads and 6 eyes. Slowly, but surely, the Cerberus' eyes drooped, and his frequent growls ceased, and it tottered on its paws and fell to its knees, then it slumped to the ground, fast asleep. Quinn moved through the room while playing the violin, and after walking by one of the Cerberus' paws, he found the trapdoor. With a look at the door, the ring handle pulled itself up, followed up by the trapdoor itself. Quinn stopped playing the violin, vanished it, and immediately jumped into the darkness inside the trapdoor. The Cerberus slowly woke up, shaking off the sleepiness, and looked around but saw no one, its 3 heads and 6 eyes missing the swiftly closing trapdoor. Quinn landed on soft ground. The cold, damp air surrounded him as he felt plants around him. Devil's Snare, thought Quinn. The second Challenger defense, set up by the herbology professor, Pomona Sprout. Devil's Snare was a magical plant in the shape of a mass of soft, springy tendrils and vines that possess some sense of touch with the instinct to constrict, or strangle anything in its surrounding environment or something that happens to touch it. Devil's Snare wasn't a carnivorous plant and didn't consume its victim. The plant used its creepers and tendrils to entrap anyone who touched it, binding their arms and legs and eventually choking them. The harder a person struggles against Devil's Snare, the faster and more tightly it binds them. Quinn felt the Devil's Snare creep up his body, but he didn't move or even try to use magic. He just stood there, waiting for the Devil's Snare to surround him, and it did, slowly creeping over his body, entrapping him in its vines and tendrils. Quinn had read about the Devil's Snare and how if you stayed relaxed, it wouldn't suffocate a person, and Quinn wanted to see if it was true. He waited for 30 seconds, and the vines didn't tighten around him and just covered him, treating him like a wall or an immovable object. Okay, this is enough, thinking that he charged up his magic, and multiple balls of harsh light appeared in the room full of Devil's Snare, scaring them as the vines hurriedly retreated from Quinn's body as it tried to shield itself away from the light. Quinn didn't use fire to not wanting to damage the vines. He didn't want to leave any evidence in case the professors came to check on the defenses. Wasting no time, Quinn walked towards the stony passageway free of Devil's Snare. The passage was dead silent as Quinn walked down the downward slope towards the next room. Quinn knew he was near the next obstacle as he heard the rustling and clinking sounds from ahead. He reached the end of the passageway and saw a brilliantly lit chamber, its ceiling arching high above them. It was full of small, jewel-bright birds, fluttering and tumbling all around the room. On the opposite side of the chamber was a heavy wooden door. The winged keys, muttered Quinn as he took in the sight of at least 100 winged keys. The flock moved randomly and rapidly, making it hard to keep track of an individual key. Quinn looked at the old wooden door and then back to the flock of key birds. An old key for an old door, thought Quinn, but before that, he tried to summon the ring by using a summoning charm, a Keo, but alas, Flitwick had charmed them impervious to being summoned. Quinn glanced at the brooms in the room, put there to chase the correct winged key. He scoffed and looked back at the crazy flock of winged keys. Yeah, right. Like I am going to use a broom to chase the correct key. Quinn trained his eyes on the flock, trying to spot the vintage-styled key, and the second he spotted it, Quinn never let his eyes wander off it. He raised his right hand, and the next second, a jet of yellow and red shot out of Quinn's right palm and latched onto the winged key. He had just used the seize and pull charm, carpe retractum. Quinn grinned, and with another thought, the cord of light started becoming shorter as it pulled the key towards Quinn, and within seconds, Quinn had the vintage-fashioned key in his hand. Now, that is how you do it. Didn't have to move at all, Quinn praised himself as he walked to the wooden door. While humming, Quinn inserted the key into the door and turned it to unlock the door. The next room was Minerva McGonagall's handiwork. A game of giant chess set with cool-looking chess pieces. Quinn stopped for a minute and observed the chessboard, admiring the work of masterful and artistic Transmigration. Quinn looked for clues and signs for what went into creating this work. A prolonged work of Transfiguration was a difficult job. The chess pieces are transmuted into their shapes. I can't decipher the original material of the pieces, but they are transfigured into stone. Quinn squatted and further examined. Oh man, the animation charms are brutal on this one. Hot stuff. The swords, axes, shields, and even the bodies. Like a student in front of a work of a master, Quinn spent some time examining the chessboard till he was satisfied. Good, now let's bypass, said Quinn as he stood up and started pilling on charms on himself. First, he made himself invisible so that the chess pieces couldn't see him. Then he casted a charm on every article of his clothing so that they didn't make a sound. Just for safety, Quinn erased his scent in case McGonagall had charmed them to sense smells. Let's go, thought Quinn as he walked onto the chessboard, and step by step, he walked from the white side to the black side. Carefully, looking at the chess pieces to see if they would move and attack him, but they didn't. His heart was pounding when he reached the rows of black pieces and slowly, awfully slowly, stepped between a black pawn and the black queen. Quinn finally exhaled a breath he didn't know he was holding and ran to the next room and shut the door behind him. Oh well, that was stressful. Quinn leaned against the door. He was sure that if the pieces moved a single centimeter, he would have blasted them smithereens. At that moment, Quinn noticed the horrendous smell in the new room, and he was immediately reminded of the troll he fought a few weeks before. A massive mountain troll stood in front of him. This one was at least 2 to 3 feet larger than the one Quinn had fought. The troll hadn't noticed Quinn, and Quinn was glad that he hadn't. In the books, Harry and Hermione didn't have to fight this troll, because Quirrellmort had already taken off it by knocking it out before the duo got to this room. Quinn, on the other hand, wasn't that lucky and had to deal with this troll. And I have to deal with it without injuring this one, Quinn sighed. Luckily, I prepared for this. He took a large round vial out of his robes. The vial contained a pale lilac-colored potion. The potion was the draught of living death, one of the stronger sleeping potions, and sent the drinker into a death-like slumber, but the potion in Quinn's vial was a unique blend. The draught of living death was a clear-colored potion, but the one in Quinn's vial was a pale lilac. The reason behind this was because it was highly concentrated. It needed to be concentrated because of the troll's size and physique. The troll was sitting on the floor, so Quinn gently rolled the vial towards it. The troll noticed the vial, picked it up with his index finger and thumb, and brought it close to his face. This was the sign Quinn was waiting for as he launched a transmutation spell towards the glass of vial, instantly disintegrating it, and the moment the potion came into contact with air, it turned to mist and became aerosol. Another handy change Quinn made to the recipe, modifying the recipe so the potion would turn to mist when coming into contact with air. The troll breathed in the vapor, and within a dozen seconds, the effects showed. The troll became drowsy and fell to its side, sleeping. Quinn immediately began moving towards the troll, continuously casting air-freshening charms around him to keep the troll stink away. He pulled open the next door, and there was nothing very frightening in here, just a table with 7 differently shaped bottles standing on it in a line. Snape's puzzles, spoke Quinn as his voice echoed in the empty room. The moment Quinn crossed the threshold, a fire sprang up behind him in the doorway. It wasn't ordinary fire either, it was purple. At the same instant, black flames shot up in the doorway, leading onward. Quinn was trapped. Chapter 32, Potion Riddle, Mirror of Erist, and another talk. In Snape's obstacle room, Quinn stood in front of the potion table that held 7 potion vials. The room had 2 handles, 1 entry and 1 exit. A purple fire covered the room's entrance, and jets of black fire blocked the exit. This all was part of the room's defense. The enchanted fires trapped a person inside, and the potions on the table contained the antidotes to both fires. Quinn looked at both the fires before shrugging and walking to the potion table. If I cannot solve the puzzle, then I would just try to undo the charms on the fires. Quinn was sure that he could figure out the charms on the fires. It would take time, but Quinn could do it, and a good puzzle was always welcome. Quinn conjured a bar stool in front of the table and sat on it while picking up the parchment. The parchment contained the riddle for the antidotes that allowed Quinn to pass the fires without harm. The riddle read: "Danger lies before you, while safety lies behind. 2 of us will help you, whichever you would find. 1 among us 7 will let you move ahead. Another will transport the drinker back instead. 2 among our number hold only nettle wine. 3 of us are killers, waiting hidden in line. Choose, unless you wish to stay here forevermore. To help you in your choice, we give you these clues for. First, however slyly the poison tries to hide, you will always find some on nettle wine's left side. Second, different are those who stand at either end. But if you would move onward, neither is your friend. Third, as you see clearly, all are different size. Neither dwarf nor giant holds death in their insides. Fourth, the second left and the second on the right are twins once you taste them, though different at first sight. Image in the paragraph comment. From the first half of the riddle, Quinn deciphered that 1 bottle will move him ahead, line 3, 1 will send him back, line 4, 2 hold nettle wine, line 5, 3 hold poison, line 6. There are 7 bottles, 3 are poison, 2 are wine, 1 will get me safely through the black fire, and 1 will get me back through the purple fire, said Quinn as he continued to decipher the riddle. From lines 9 and 10, Quinn deciphered: there is always poison to the left of nettle wine. From lines 11 and 12, Quinn cracked: the bottles on either end of the line contain different contents, but neither will move you forward. The next 2 lines, 13 and 14, revealed: the smallest, dwarf, and largest, giant, bottles do not contain poison. The last 2 lines, 15 to 16, spoke to Quinn. The second from the left and the second from the right is housed in different sized bottles, but they hold the same contents. Now, Quinn had all the clues from the riddle, and he could start solving the potion identities. First, let's set the with unchangeable constants, Quinn said as he numbered the positions from our left to right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, insert the constants. The elements second from the left and second from the right are identical, though in different looking bottles, and poison will always be to the left of nettle wine, said Quinn, but he stopped just before marking things. There are 2 possible ways to arrange these bottles, depending on whether, to nettle wine bottle's left side, means from our left or from the wine bottle's left. But both arrangements ultimately lead to the same end solution of the puzzle, said Quinn as he finally marked the potions. First combination: 1, poison, 2, wine, 3, X, 4, Y, 5, poison, 6, wine, 7, Z. Second combination: 1, wine, 2, poison, 3, X, 4, Y, 5, wine, 6, poison, 7, Z. Quinn smiled as he noted, whichever way I do it, I satisfy the requirement that the elements second from the end, position 2 and position 6, hold the same contents, 2, wine, 6, wine, or 2, poison, 6, poison, and I also satisfy the requirement on either end. Poison will always appear to the left of the wine, depending on whose left I am using. Quinn began swinging his legs as he continued to solve the riddle. Okay, so now that I have positioned the poison and wine sequences, the constants, we now have 3 bottles remaining. 1 is poison, 1 moves you backward, 1 moves you forward. Poison cannot be in either giant or dwarf bottle. The bottle on one end of the line cannot hold the same contents as the bottle on the opposite ends. And neither of the bottles on end will move you forward. Now, I am going to use that, nettle wine's left, means our left. Poison is always on nettle wine's left, so we can erase the second combination, noted Quinn from clue number 1. 1, poison, 2, wine, 3, X, 4, Y, 5, poison, 6, wine, 7, Z. The second clue says that bottles at the ends have different contents and won't help me move forward, which means that it can't be poison and won't be the forward potion, said Quinn, so he noted. That means it can only be the backward potions. All right. 1. Poison, 2. Wine, 3. X, 4. Y, 5. Poison, 6. Wine, 7. Backward. Finally, 3. X, and 4. Y, can either be poison or forward potion, clapped Quinn, and finally used the third clue that says that dwarf and giant potions don't have poison. While the books didn't show the readers the layout, but Quinn could see the layout, and 3X was the shortest bottle and thus the dwarf bottle. If it isn't poison, then it is the forward potion, and the remaining 4Y is the remaining poison, solved Quinn, and the final result was as follows. 1. Poison, 2. Wine, 3. Forward, 4. Poison, 5. Poison, 6. Wine, 7. Backward. Quinn folded the sheet of paper and pocketed it. He took out 2 vials and poured the contents of the forward and backward potions into them. He placed the now empty vials back on the table and looked to see if they would fill themselves up, but nothing happened. Quinn shrugged. I will break one leg of the table, so it would seem that the potion drained when the table broke. He walked to the black fire and chugged down the forward potion. He pocketed the bottle and walked forward. He braced himself, saw the black flames licking his body, but couldn't feel them. For a moment he could see nothing but dark fire, then he was on the other side, in the last chamber. The chamber was empty, not unlike the previous one, and in the center of the room stood a mirror. The mirror was on the base level of the floor with steps leading down to it. Quinn climbed down the steps and approached the mirror. The writing engraved on the frame of the mirror said, Erist stra eru oit ub kafru oit on wosi dot. Quinn smiled softly and repeated, I show not your face, but your heart's desire. Quinn's heart beat faster as he shifted his eyes from the frame to the mirror itself. He was a little nervous about what he would see in the mirror. Quinn closed his eyes before opening them to see what his heart desired. In the mirror, a version of Quinn stared back at him. The mirror Quinn was exuding a humongous amount of magic. The current Quinn had large magic reserves, but Mirror Quinn was on another level. To Quinn, it seemed that Mirror Quinn could never run out of magic. Quinn also saw that Mirror Quinn's eyes were a deep violet instead of his usual stone-grey eyes. Quinn found himself staring into the deep violet eyes, wondering the reason behind the color change. From what Quinn could decipher, the Mirror Quinn was a master at magic, a powerful magical at that. It had always been one of Quinn's top goals. Quinn looked around the Mirror Quinn and saw his family, all smiling. He saw Leah, George, Elliot, Ms. Rosie, and Polly. Even Alan D. Baddeley, his mind arts teacher, was present in the mirror image. In the background, Quinn could see a globe turning slowly. It signified Quinn's desire to learn magic from all around the world. Quinn finally looked at Mirror Quinn wanting the Philosopher's Stone, but Mirror Quinn smiled apologetically and shook his head. Quinn frowned and asked, why? Mirror Quinn took out a ruby-red stone from his robes and showed it to Quinn. It was the Philosopher's Stone. Then Mirror Quinn took out his fake wand and then stared at both of his hands. Quinn watched as the fake wand in Mirror Quinn's hand turned into gold. Mirror Quinn didn't stop and took out a potion vial and put the stone on the vial, and Quinn saw the vial fill up with a crystal blue liquid. It was the elixir of life. Quinn ruefully smiled and spoke, if I get the stone, I will end up using it, aren't I? Albus Dumbledore had charmed the mirror so that only those who wanted to find it and not use it for themselves. The Mirror Quinn nodded in agreement, and that made Quinn sigh. All this work was for nothing, exasperated Quinn and ran a hand through his hair. He backed away from the mirror and sat on the steps, sighing. He looked up at the dark ceiling and pondered. Quinn had already thought about this outcome, but he still tried this, convincing himself that he only wanted to see the stone. I guess I can't fool my own heart, Quinn said to himself and kept sitting there before deciding he had brooded enough and it was time to exit the stone's chambers. Quinn climbed the steps, but not before giving the mirror of Erist one last time. Quinn ran through the black fire and entered Snape's room, and noticed that the vials were against full. He walked to the table and muttered, maybe, it takes time to recharge. He shrugged and took the backward potion to pass the purple fire. He groaned as the troll's stench hit him and kicked the unconscious troll to release some frustration. then once again walked as he stepping on eggshells as he passed through McGonagall's chessboard, hurriedly walked through Flitwick's Winky room, and reached Sprout's Devil's Snare. Once again, multiple orbs of harsh light scared the vines away and used the seize and pull spell, Carpus Retractum, to latch one end of the cord to just near the trapdoor and pulled himself up. Just before he opened the trapdoor, Quinn conjured a violin, animated it to play a piece, and sent it out of the trapdoor so that when Quinn exited, Fluffy, the Cerberus would be fast asleep. Quinn waited for half a minute before exiting the trapdoor to see a sleeping Fluffy and walked out the underground chambers, but not before turning invisible and checking the surroundings in Recon. When the Ravenclaw students returned, Quinn was waiting for Eddie and Marcus for them in the common room. Quinn asked the moment Eddie and Marcus walked to him, "How was the game?" Marcus looked excited and answered, "It was one exciting game, you should have seen Harry Potter on the broom. He was weaving through the chasers, beaters, bludgers, and quaffle." Quinn turned to Eddie when he spoke, "He was pretty good." "No, he was mad good for his age. His broom did give him some problems during the game, but he still managed to snatch the snitch." He scoffed, "You would think that Nimbus would make good brooms." Quinn absent-mindedly nodded and thought, "No change in this event. I see." Scene break. A few days later, Quinn had an interesting conversation with someone he wasn't expecting to talk to. Quinn was walking from the room of requirement to the Great Hall when he met Lily Potter. Quinn didn't want to talk to her after his passionate rant, but the Muggle Studies professor called out to him. "Mr. West," Lily called when she saw him. Quinn groaned internally before turning to face her. "Evening, Professor Potter." "A good evening to you as well, Mr. West." "I assume you are going to the Great Hall," she asked, and when Quinn nodded, she asked, "Wonderful, walk with me." Quinn fell in step with Lily and was wondering if he should make small talk, but Lily took care of that. "I thought about the things you said to me when we first met," she said, and Quinn really didn't want to talk about that, but then she asked, "Tell me, Mr. West, when did you start visiting the Muggle world?" Quinn wondered why she was asking that but then shrugged and answered, "I have been in contact with the non-magical world as long as I can remember. I, with my sister, regularly spend our time together in the non-magical world. I have also been to various parts of the world and have experienced both their magical and non-magical parts." Now that the conversation was on a roll, Quinn decided to ask, "What about you, Professor Potter? How did you raise the twins? Are they familiar with the non-magical world?" "Yes, they are. Both of my children attended Muggle schools before coming to Hogwarts," Lily smiled as she revealed. Quinn nodded in appreciation. "Is that so?" "I never did that. I was homeschooled, but not in non-magical subjects. Maybe one day, I will study those subjects." He looked up towards her and asked, "What about you? Did you catch up with your non-magical studies?" Lily shook her head while chuckling, "Oh, no. I was too busy with the twins, and now I am teaching here at Hogwarts." She hesitated before asking, "May I ask how did you build such a good rapport with Professor Snape?" Quinn quirked his brows and spoke in confusion, "Professor Potter, maybe you are misinformed, I barely talk to Professor Snape, much less have a good rapport with him. But, the other professor said that you are his favorite student, so I wondered." She sounded that she really wanted an answer. "Professor, from what I have heard and observed, Professor Snape." He stopped before staring her dead in the eyes and asked, "I am going to tell you something in confidence, and anything I say wouldn't make its way to anyone else, can you keep this a secret? I don't want Professor Snape to hear this. Can you promise me that?" Lily was confused but nodded, so Quinn continued, "Honestly speaking, Professor Snape doesn't enjoy teaching. Heck, Professor Snape doesn't know how to teach. Compared to Professor Flitwick and Professor McGonagall, he seems like a poor novice. Snape was a master potioneer, but that mastery didn't convert to skill in teaching, and if Snape heard this, then Quinn's potion lessons would go from pleasantly calm to outright miserable. From his point of view, all the students are dunderheads, which is not really how a teacher should view his students, and the reason I am treated differently is that I follow his instructions without any mistakes, am not annoying, and keep out of his way. Plus, I am not sure about this, but I think he tolerates me because I am genuinely interested in potions, but the jury is still out on the last one." Quinn looked proud as he continued, "I am proud to say that Professor Snape hasn't yelled at me or cut points from me even once. I only communicate with Professor Snape when he asks me to answer a question or during the roll call, except that he and I don't talk that much. But, don't you have questions for him? You just said that he is a master potioneer, don't you want to learn from someone of that level? Asked Lily. She had been the smartest witch of her generation, and not communicating with her teachers seemed absolutely strange to her. Quinn hummed in thought before replying, Professor, there are many types of learners. Some require another person to stand on their head to motivate them to learn, some need step-by-step guidance, some learn by doing, and some prefer to learn by themselves. I am of the last type. I prefer to learn at my own pace and at my own convenience. Books and other texts are my best friends, they have everything I need. I haven't felt the need to consult with a professor if I can learn it by myself. Of course, by this, I am not saying that there is no need for teachers. As I said, there are all kinds of learners, and teachers help all types of learners. But, why the sudden interest in Professor Snape? Asked Quinn, who felt that the conversation was getting out of track and slowly becoming about him, so he brought it back to the original topic. Lily ruefully smiled, hearing that, asked, You see, Severus was my friend, but we had a falling out, and I am thinking how to make up with him, but I have no idea how to approach that. She didn't know why she was asking a 12 for advice. Quinn stayed silent for a moment, and Lily thought she had made him uncomfortable. She was about to say something when Quinn spoke, I am not an authority on relationships, and I do not know how Professor Snape is in his personal life. But if I were to give advice, then I would say to be prepared. A broken relationship can have a lot of hidden emotions, and the message you are trying to convey might not go across, so choose your words wisely. Quinn paused for just a second, and if the other party is not willing to start the conversation, you must be the one to approach them. Take charge and show that your friendship means something. Explain why you felt hurt or angry. Ask about your friend's perspective. Keep an open mind as you listen to your friend speak. And, at last, be ready to walk away if you two can't resolve the issue. Quinn knew why Lily and Snape had a falling out, and while it was entirely Snape's fault, it wasn't weird that Lily had forgiven him after so many years. Time heals wounds, and now she wanted to rebuild her friendship with her childhood friend, the one who introduced her to magic. By the time Quinn finished giving his opinion, they had reached the Great Hall, and Quinn said before parting, I hope you may be successful in your endeavor, Professor Potter. Now, please excuse me. Quinn left without giving Lily a chance to reply, leaving her to think about what she just heard and what she needed to do. This marks the end of Part 8 of the story, Magical Journey in Harry Potter World. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.